everyone, and welcome to Pod TV's Timeshares Solution or Surrender. My name is Kimberly Calhoun. I'm one of the TV founders. And what I'd like to do is introduce to you one of the most amazing people. She's a huge advocate for people who have experienced deceptive acts when purchasing timeshares, and keep that in mind when they have experienced deceptive acts, because not every timeshare experience is a deceptive act, though you may have heard the horror stories. What we have here on Timeshare Solution or Surrender are real people, real stories. And Irene provides the do-it-yourself solution ideas so that you can go out there and tackle these. What should have been and should be a beautiful vacation experience sometimes turns into one of those horror movies. And guess what? You had no music to give you warning that you were about to become a victim of a horror story rather than the beautiful vacation you were on. So everyone, help me welcome Irene Parker, who is one of these wonderful, amazing people trying to turn what may have been a bad situation into a good situation. Hi, Irene. How are you doing?
Hi, it's nice to be back, and I'm really excited about today's show. We have three other guests, and one of the first guests we'll introduce in a bit is Sheila in New York. Sheila Brush is our TARDA Timeshare and Resort Developer Accountability, a co-founder with me, and our board president. She resolved a timeshare dispute, I'd say 3 years ago, without retaining a third party. She worked with Wyndham Certified Exit to be released from her Wyndham points or weeks. And she's now, though, has a problem with Club Exploria. She owns at Grand Seas, and they do not offer a responsible exit. They will tell you to just find a buyer. And we're especially excited to have Timeshare User Group, Brian Rogers from Tug, with us to answer the question, why did Sheila decide to list with Tug for $1 when Timeshares only recommended by not only Club Exploria and the timeshare industry lobby, ARDA, for $8,000 to $11,000 with a listing fee of $800. So one of our goals is to promote a viable secondary market. And I know a number of years ago, I read Wyndham's annual report and Diamond's annual reports, and they said a viable secondary market is a risk to our investors. That would be their stock and bond investors. Can you imagine if Pulte or Lennar would put in their annual report a viable secondary market is a risk to the people that buy our homes? So before we get started, let me just explain that there is no multiple list.
So I think what Irene is trying to say while things are trying to come back, that there are no multiple listings for timeshare resales. So just be very careful when you are buying into one of these programs. Are you back, Irene?
Okay,
I think we just had a little glitch, but
okay.
You were at no multiple listings for timeshare resale.
Thank you for that. When you buy and sell a house, you know what someone listed it for and what it's sold for. So that is a particular risk. But basically, if you want to sell a timeshare, there's three ways to do it. Same like residential. People may or may not want to do for sale by owner. It's more complicated in residential than timeshare, of course. But there are licensed real estate agents that will help you with the process. We had Sherida on, who is with True Timeshare Realty, where they only accept Marriott and Disney listings on April 8th, we will have Jessica O'Daniels on. She's with Redbud Realty. But for people that want to sell it on their own, they can go to Timeshare Users Group or to Red Week, are two of the most popular that we're aware of. And so the last we would suggest is using these listing services, and Brian will give us a better explanation about why there's a lot of pitfalls that of what they charge to list and what they do. And obtained my Florida real estate license this past October, and the National Association of Realtors said it is an unlicensed assistant may not advertise real property for another for compensation. They undertake to list or sell one or more timeshare periods on behalf of another individual for compensation. Or 3, negotiate or agree to any commission split or referral fee on behalf of a licensee. So they get around that with charging a listing fee. But how can you say that it's against the law for an unlicensed person to suggest a listing price, but someone with a listing agent can tell Sheila to sell her timeshare for $8,000 to $11,000? Now, we're going to start today with our third guest is Bob from Colorado. We support members helping members, members supporting members. So when Sheila said that she was told to find a buyer with Club Exploria, I said, I'd like to introduce you to a new timeshare friend of mine who was told the same thing, but pushed the envelope a little bit, and Club Exploria has agreed to take back his timeshare. So I'd like to bring Bob in to introduce him. And Bob, I hear that you are a real bulldog from the response that was sent to the Florida Attorney General. I haven't experienced that in our many conversations. Can you just take us from start to finish your timeshare exit journey?
Well, my journey began 2001. My wife and I, Joyce, bought timeshare and Exploria Resorts in Orlando, Florida. Through the years, we've enjoyed it. Never had any major problems. I do know that every time we used it, when we would get there, they would want us to spend a morning at an owner's meeting for potential upgrades and all that kind of malarkey. When we would get there, they were trying to always switch us from the 1 week that we had per year. They were always wanting to upsell us to the point system and various other things, to which we never did. We stayed with the solid week once a year. And I lost my wife over a year ago. And through this last year, I've been rethinking a lot of things, and I just decided, I really have no use for this anymore. We haven't been down there for a few years because of my wife's health. So I made an initial contact to Exploria Resorts to see what I could do about getting rid of my timeshare, and which I was told we do not have a exit program, and you would need to sell it on your own or figure that out. I through a friend of mine gave me name of a realtor in Florida, Judy Kozlowski, and I contacted her, and she introduced me to Irene. And through my discussions with Irene, she suggested and bringing me up to date. So I went back to Explorer, and I told them that I had no use for it, and that I don't know how to get rid of this, and that I'm not going to pay any further maintenance fees. Of which they told me, well, you are responsible because you're the owner, and we just don't have an exit program. So I did file a complaint with the Attorney General's office in Florida. It was followed. It took several weeks for Exploria to come back to them And in the meantime, I contacted Timeshares, the ones that Irene suggested to me, and wound up talking to a gentleman by the name of Nelson, and went through a lot of the same verbiage and conversations that Sheila had with them and some other people. And he was telling me, we can list it for, as upfront cost. I think it was $700 for them to do all the marketing, and that he said we would suggest between 6 to 9,000. And at that time, I asked him, "Are you a licensed real estate agent?" Of which he said no. And I said, "You understand the Florida real estate law, in that someone who is not a licensed real estate agent cannot suggest something like that." He said, "No." He said, "It's up to you. You can change the price, whatever." It was very nice. But anyway, after that conversation, I did another complaint to Florida Attorney General's office, and they went back to Exploria. And then the response from Exploria was that I was a very combative individual, and that I was hard to deal with, and they did not want to deal with me anymore. And at that time, I did, in writing, send to Exploria, "I am not going to pay one more dime on maintenance or anything else." And so in the meantime, I was also getting calls from other outfits saying, they could sell my timeshare. And I had offers anywhere from about $10,000 up to one was like $42,000, and everything in between. And then all of a sudden in January, out of the blue, no contact, I get a packet uh, from Exploria Resorts with paperwork and documents stating if I want to, they will release me if I will do the following. And I did exactly what they said. I wound up paying last year's maintenance fees, and that was it. And I had to submit a certificate of death on behalf of my wife. And so I did all that paperwork, and all of that came out of the blue. There was no contact. It's just all of a sudden it arrived in the mail. And I just think it was from the standpoint that I just put my foot down and said, "Look, I'm not paying another dime. Take me to court, whatever. I'm an 82-year-old senior. And from what I understand, if the credit bureaus see that this is in relationship to a timeshare, they're going to flag that, because there's so many of these things that are going on out there that it's not going to hurt your credit." And I really didn't give a rip. I was sick and tired of being pushed around, and said enough's enough. And that's what I did. And I am waiting for the document. I made contact with them, I think it was last week, and they said it is in process. You are released, and I have that in writing. And I will be getting a document, whatever the document, it's a specific document relinquishing me from any contact or responsibility with Exploria Resorts in Florida.
Well, and before we bring in Sheila, because she's now in that same process,
Sheila disappeared. I don't know how to get her back.
well, okay, well, I could easily be Sheila because I know her story so well. So we might be bringing
I
Brian.
wanted her on. She's wearing the T-shirt.
She's wearing a T-shirt. I'll give her a call when Brian explains about what's TUG and what's going on with this disparity. But I just want to say the first time I encountered the aggressiveness of Club Exploria was a senior, Dorothy. Dorothy was 90 years old. She did not drive. She lived in independent living. She had been asked for several years, how do I get out of this, find a buyer? And I called them because she broke her jaw in 3 places. And they said, I said, she's 90, she doesn't drive, she can't Medicare didn't pay for her JAWS wiring. She can't afford the maintenance fees anymore. So I called, I called them and they said, we don't take it back. And I posted on Facebook and somebody gave me the name of a person in the title department. And I explained the situation. She says, we will need to talk to her directly. So a few days later, I contacted Dorothy and she said, they won't take it back because I talked to Irene Parker. And I hit the ceiling and I called them. They hung up on me. And then 20 minutes later, the phone rang. It was Dorothy. And she said, Exploria just called. They're going to take my timeshare back. But to me, this is, nothing short of financial elder abuse for people that have loyally paid maintenance fees for years and years and years to put them through this. So I'd like to now bring in Brian. I'm sure he's been listening to this, and give us a little background on what's TUG. I think you're the second generation of TUG, if I remember. And I will go to my phone and see if I can get Sheila back. So Brian, we're glad to have you here today.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here. Again, listening to the story told by Bob and Irene for Sheila. I wish I could say that it's something I'd never heard before. Unfortunately, that story we get on an almost daily basis here at Timeshare Users Group. As Irene mentioned, I am technically a second generation owner of TUG. It was started by my father back in the early 90s in a Prodigy chat room, a Prodigy bulletin board for just a bunch of owners. I don't know if anybody can remember back that far, but the internet was not what it was today in the early 90s. Google didn't even exist. So there wasn't really the ease of typing a question into your web browser and getting, 1 million responses that you can search. And essentially a group of timeshare owners came together in that Prodigy bulletin board, and slowly developed over the past 30 years into what we have today with hundreds of thousands of owners able to get together on a free forum and share information, get the actual truth about timeshares, which is really the sole reason TUG exists. And I'm happy to take that over from my father when he retired about 15 or so years ago. We see the story that these two have said, again, on an almost daily basis. It's not specific to Exploria, although they are, as of late, certainly referring owners that reach out for help to get out of their timeshares that are paid for to an upfront fee exit company, which we did a video on our TUG YouTube channel for this specific reason. It's abhorrent. It's something we honestly couldn't believe when we heard it. If I hadn't seen the emails, I would usually be shocked to discover that an entity would do something like this. But Bob's answer of putting his foot down and refusing to pay and being the squeaky wheel is a solution. You're absolutely correct. Unfortunately, it just doesn't work for that many people, whether it's not as many people are as willing to put their foot as far down as you went, or people just kind of take no for an answer. Kind of very similar to when they bought the timeshare in the first place. They'll ask once, and when they're told no, which unfortunately is the default answer. And when you call almost any of these organizations that don't have official exit programs, and even some that do have official exit programs, the first answer is always going to be, we don't do that, or we don't take back timeshares, or you're kind of need to go sell it yourself, or something like that. There are a few companies out there that do have specific departments for that, but if you don't get that department on the phone, or you call just a regular customer service agent or the front desk, they're likely going to tell you the same thing. Nope, sorry, we don't know anything about that. And so many people will take that as the final answer. It's very, very frustrating that there's not a much easier way to get out of a timeshare, especially for elderly when it's already paid for. But we have seen a shift in the industry where default is becoming more common as the solution to get out of a timeshare. When you see these exit companies and cancellation companies that advertise all over media with we guarantee we can get you out of your timeshare, or 100% guaranteed solution to get you out of your timeshare, that solution is to tell people to stop paying, as that is the only guaranteed way to get out of your timeshare. The problem is you have a coin flip effort, a coin flip percentage chance that either that's going to show up on your credit report, which you may or may not care about. The timeshare industry could just harass you or hound you with collections letters or phone calls for months, if not years. But there are just so few timeshares that are actually, I've actually never heard of it happening, taking people to court to recover unpaid maintenance fees. So, I mean, if your timeshare is paid off and you're stuck in a place where you can't give it away and they won't take it back, default has become, in this day and age, a very real solution to get you out of your timeshare. And it's not something you have to pay for. You don't need to pay a third party. You don't need to pay a lawyer. You don't need to pay any sort of firm out there. If your choice is to default on your timeshare, to either one, just to be done with it, or two, try to force their hand, as Bob did, to have them eventually send you a document saying they're willing to take it back. It is a legitimate and real solution in this day and age.
Well, that's
Sounds
great.
like
And
a
I'm going to,
lifetime jail imprisonment to me, but
I'm sorry.
well,
go ahead,
You
Go
talked
ahead.
over yourself. I couldn't hear it. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
what I would like to do before we can go ahead and bring Sheila in, and I want to read off some figures. And this came from Bob and from Sheila, who will share her story in just a second. Where there was a Westgate listing for $13,995 on Timeshares only, or buy a timeshare, their sister companies, as opposed to Tug, $395, one for $495, and one for $2,000. Sell My Timeshare Now had 11,000 and 30,000. They had 166 listings, and Red Week had one for 1,000. So our question is, do they have a secret sauce that they, with massive search engines, that's something that they can't do? But Sheila has been in discussion with Timeshares Only. And Sheila, give us a little background of what your interaction was like with them, and then Brian can let us know, who's right here.
Okay. Yes, I did talk to them. That's who the company recommended. And they said that they would do my timeshare, put it up for sale. And it was $798 till it was sold. And I could go with their sister company, which is buy a timeshare for $998. And excuse me. He explained to me the different things about they would pay the broker's fees, the buyer would, and the closing cost and the transfer fees. When I first talked to him the other day, he said I could list it for 8 to 11,000. I have a 1-bedroom, and then today he told me that because I have already paid it off, that when I told him I went on Tug and another company, they said that it would be probably 2,500 to 5,500 because I'm already paid off. And the reason why they're only $1 out there is probably because it's people that put their ad out there and just want to sell it. And if once they put it out there for that kind of money, then it was up to the seller if they wanted to lower the price. So I guess maybe they put it out there for that kind of money, and then after a while you get down to wherever, the market will do.
So, and maybe we'll have someone from Timeshares Only. That would be interesting to have a discussion with Brian and Nelson. But I'm still wondering, is it because they say they have massive search engines that Tug and Red Week doesn't have? Are people just unaware of Tug and Red Week?
I mean, there's no special search engines that those companies use, and the advertising dollars that they spend on, which I will say without a doubt, they probably spend more in Google advertising than we do, but they're marketing towards sellers, not buyers. The goal of those companies is to attract sellers to collect their large upfront fees. They know full well the timeshare is not going to sell for $8,000 to $11,000. They know full well the timeshare is not going to sell for $2,000 because you can go on Tug or Redweek or eBay and find an unlimited supply of that same timeshare being offered for free. This is a conversation I have on an almost daily basis because the number one question we get is, how much is my timeshare worth? I need to sell it. And I like to say is if pretend you are a buyer of a timeshare, pretend you're trying to buy your own timeshare. If you go to Tug and you see your timeshare listed for $1 and then another one for $1,000 and another one for $3,000, which one would you buy if they're the exact same timeshare? I hate to say it, but there are people that come to Tug and still list their timeshares at a high price that just won't attract anything but scammers. So if I'm looking at two exact same units, they're both one for $1 and one for $1,000. Why would anyone pay $999 more for that exact same unit? So when you have these companies that are telling you that you can list your timeshare for $8,000 to $11,000, they're telling you that because once you hear that, you're far more inclined to pay that $895 or $495 or whatever it happens to be. Another mention, you mentioned another site that had hundreds of listings. That particular site never takes their ads down. You can go look at listings and some of them are decades old. They're 10, 15 years old. They're never removed from the site. And they do that for the sole reason of part of their advertising and marketing is we are the largest marketplace on the internet. We have the most ads of anyone on the internet, and Tug would too if we never expired our ads, if we didn't take down the completed ones. So you will find that particular site lists timeshares forever, and it's even part of something they sell. That's part of their marketing scheme. Is when you call, they say, "Hey, your timeshare is going to be listed forever. You don't have to pay any renewal fees. You don't have to pay anything. It's always going to be on our site until it sells." Well, the problem is it will never sell for $10,000, and thus it will stay on there for the rest of its life. And that's why you can see hundreds and hundreds of listings for each individual timeshare on that site. And that's how they can market that they have, a million listings or whatever it happens to be, because some of them are legitimately 10 plus years old and that never sold. Because again, the goal of these companies is to collect the upfront fee from the seller. And the only way to do that is to tell them that their timeshare has value. Telling them the truth in this industry is not profitable and will never result in anyone doing business for that amount of money. I could never charge my owners $500 if I told them what I offer them for free anyway, which is that you'll probably be lucky to sell it for $1. And in that case, you probably even have to pay closing costs to attract a buyer to take it off your hands.
Well, and one thing I heard you say, Sheila, mention about it's paid off. On timeshares only, one of the complaints I read, a lot of times it's when they complain about it hasn't sold, they say, oh, just drop the price. One person said they dropped the price to $1. But one person said, I listed my timeshare with timeshares only in January of 2023. I paid $1,037 to have it listed. I have been paying my maintenance fee as well as my current loan. Brian, I don't think anyone, I mean, if there's a resale agent and somebody calls a resale agent with a loan, that honest resale agent will just refer them to our nonprofit. You can't sell a timeshare with a loan unless you have a relative you don't like willing to take it over.
Yeah, that's correct. There's no realistic way to sell or even give away a timeshare that has a loan balance. I guess you could technically convince someone to take it over, but no one in their right mind is going to take over a timeshare with a loan balance because, as we mentioned before, even if the loan balance was $2,000, why would I take over $2,000 in debt for something I can get for free on Tug or eBay or Redweek?
It's amazing. And so
he had mentioned that the one to get $8,000 to $11,000, it's probably people that still have a loan and they need to pay it off. So the $2,500 to $5,500 was for people that already had it paid off. So.
Yeah,
that makes no sense whatsoever.
No, it doesn't.
For a regular buyer who it doesn't have the collective level of knowledge in this particular session, it makes perfect sense though. It's exactly the response they're looking to hear, and unfortunately, they will find out far too late that it was a flat out lie.
Yeah.
So, and Kimberly, you were saying that when you purchased that they were telling you you could not resell it, but I do know that with the company you were referring to, they definitely can be resold. Now, and Brian, one thing I want to make sure I don't forget is if you are, and you also handle rentals, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so are people that rent, are they able to make their maintenance fees back, or is renting a money-making situation, as it's often sold as a rental investment opportunity, which is also illegal in Florida to sell a timeshare as a rental investment?
Yeah, that's again playing kind of fast and loose with the truth. And while the statement at face value is probably legally okay, yes, you can rent your timeshare. That is 100% a true statement. Yes, you can rent your timeshare and make money off it. Are you going to make a profit? That's where we get into the gray area. Are there timeshares out there that you can rent for more than your maintenance fees? Yes. Is the average owner able to do that? Absolutely not. It requires extensive knowledge of the system that you own. It requires extensive knowledge of the value of certain weeks. For example, spring break being worth far more value-wise in terms of rental, just because the demand is much higher versus, middle of winter, depending on your resort. So when an owner contacts me and say, hey, I've heard I can rent my timeshare out to cover my maintenance fees, is it possible? Sure. Are you likely to be able to do it? It being that you've never rented before and this is your first venture into doing that, I would say no. It'd be an unreasonable expectation to think that you are going to break even at best in trying to rent your timeshare for the first time. And in most cases, you'll have to discount it 10 or 20% off your maintenance fee, what it costs you to attract a renter. So yes, you're going to be able to rent it. You could probably rent it out for some money, but it may or may not cover your maintenance fees. And those that are making money covering more than their maintenance fees truly know how the rental market works, truly know their system in and out, and are able to reserve those weeks that they know will rent for much higher than it actually costs them in maintenance fees.
And have you had any of the TUG members that own Blue Green Vacation weeks or points finding their accounts suspended?
That has been a recent complaint. There have been a number of indications that Blue Green is cracking down on renting, just like Wyndham and just like Marriott. It seems like most of the major players are shifting their paradigm to go after renters. To the level at which it's being reported. I'm not sure. I haven't seen any official statement from Blue Green other than the reports that the individuals they were flagged as renting out. I don't know if those people were renting out dozens of weeks a year or if they only rented one and somehow got flagged. I know on the Wyndham side, they have been very aggressive at going after people that are making multiple reservations a year. And thus they call them mega renters or commercial renters that are at least under Wyndham standards and probably Blue Green standards. There's some sort of algorithm that determines how many reservations are being made under that account, what names they're being put into if you're putting them into not using them yourself. And for whatever reason, these accounts are just being flagged more and more. And I don't know if, because you don't get all the details when you see stuff reported on the internet. So it could be the fact that person made 25 reservations in 6 months, and thus their account was flagged and turned off, as is the case with many of the Wyndham commercial renters that are experiencing that. But I will say that by and large, the industry is making an effort to curb renting to not yourself, if that makes sense, to curb the process of renting for profit, whether or not I really don't know at what level these companies are trying to make that cutoff, because again, all these people are sold, including most of the people in this room, were heard in their timeshare pitch that they could rent their timeshare if they weren't going to use it and cover their maintenance fees. That was part of
I have it on recording.
Yeah, no, it's
No, I
it
have
still
it.
is.
I recorded an after session when somebody called me and told me I could. So, because then I decided to record. I wish I would have recorded the sales pitch, but I was very intoxicated with my sister on vacation. In fact, my person that I work with who read the contract, and he's known me for years. He goes, I know you were intoxicated. There's no way in the world, in any sane mind, in your mind, would have done this any other way. And when you look at my signatures, they're not my signatures. I don't know whose signatures they are, but they're not mine. So the deceptive acts have increased in my mind based on some of the conversations that I have been blessed with having with Irene to help me understand how I could have fallen into that kind of a trap. And what they did to me has prevented me from doing my traveling that I love to do because the expense bled me out. And they everything that they said they offered didn't exist. Not for me. There was no value and consideration for anything that was sold to me. So, and I don't think that there's any value of consideration, but when you tell someone that you are buying a piece of real estate, but you can't make money on it after you buy it, that's against our constitutional rights somewhere, I think. I mean, that's taken away our right to make value out of real estate, and that's wrong.
I agree. I fully agree that people should be able to rent out their timeshares if they're not using them. I think the resorts and the systems likely agree with that as well. The gray area comes into at what point do you shift from you personally renting out your interval, or it also shifted from individual weeks or floating weeks to now points where you can make multiple reservations and so on and so forth. But that's a whole separate topic. But I just don't know where Wyndham draws the line between someone who's just renting out a timeshare or multiple reservations that they're not using that week versus the person who is actively seeking out someone to rent multiple weeks using their points. And where they draw the line between a regular user and a commercial user or a mega renter. Blue Green the same way. When you're talking about points, I just don't know, and that's not something they will ever likely divulge to where they draw the line to determine, hey, you're no longer an individual owner just renting out because you didn't use your timeshare that year. You're actively engaged in commercially renting timeshares using our point system, and it's a difficult process just because they're trying to look out for the other Wyndham owners. One of the biggest gripes that most timeshare owners experience is availability. Hey, I can see this timeshare. I can't reserve this, but I can see it for rent. What's up with that? And so when you see the most highly desirable and the most valuable weeks in each system being reserved by multi-million point owners and offered up for rent for an exorbitant fee, you have the one side where they're just using the system as they were sold, and there should be nothing wrong with that. And then the other side, all of the owners trying to reserve that week are frustrated because they can't reserve it with their points because someone already has done that and is now offering it for rent. So there's no answer that the timeshare industry is going to be able to come up with that is going to make everyone happy. You're either going to make the renters unhappy or you're going to make the owners unhappy because there are less reservations to take from in the pool. But that's totally different in the situation where salesmen always tell you what you want to hear in the sales presentation in order for you to buy. And the reality just is something totally different when you actually go to use your timeshare.
Well, before we go,
it's a-
Sheila, do me a favor. Stand up. We're not going with it. I want the world to see this shirt. There you go.
Yeah,
Timeshare regrets.
I don't know which way am I going here.
I know.
Yeah.
So
And
timeshare
my daughter designed this one.
No, this is the original one.
Oh, that's the original one. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So
Yeah.
timeshare regrets.
Yeah.
So the thing is that Irene gets beaten up a lot, and she'll get sent. Well, they just have buyer's regret, and I go, no, they were lied to. It's liar's regret. It's not buyer's regret. It's that they believed what they were being sold. So Irene, kind of share a little bit about what you're up against when you try to help these people.
Well, actually, I think things are improving. We're hearing, like Bob is one example of today's positive outcome. Taya was our first guest, and she sent 74 emails to Wyndham since September. And then we sent them the link to her show, and they did respond. She's considering what they're talking about. But I have a really we could devote a whole show to this. And Kim, I don't know if we're going to take a break or not before we
No,
end
let's
this.
just keep going.
Okay, great.
Conversation.
Okay, because Brian posted on the TUG Facebook group about Hilton Grand Vacations. And Diamond Resorts has one of the most restrictive policies on renting. but it is clearly defined. Commercial activity, sometimes that gets a little hazy. Should it be considered commercial activity if you're just making back your maintenance fees? That's not really making money. So the Hilton product, prior to Diamond acquiring Hilton acquiring Diamond and Blue Green, was a deeded product that was accompanied by points. And according to my Hilton go-to reseller, you mentioned Judy Kozlowski, you can rent your home week, but not your points. But now Diamond does not allow renting at all. And if I'm a Diamond member, which I am, and I wanted to buy into HGV Max, which is a program, not a product, I have to buy additional Diamond points. And I don't think a lot of people know that Diamond is that restrictive on renting. And so if you are a deeded Hilton owner, or if you're a Diamond member, I can see upgrading to have access to Hilton Grand Vacation properties. But Brian, I'd like you to just discuss a little bit deeds versus points, because I know with Marriott, you typically will not get your maintenance fees back renting out points, but you will if you rent out your Aruba or Newport Coast week.
It's the concept or the difference between deeds and points. Again, you devote a whole show on that. But essentially, I believe what you're asking. A deeded week is essentially a traditional timeshare, whether it's a fixed week that you own, i.e., I own week 6, which would be sometime in February, at a specific resort. You own a specific unit at a resort that you can visit every year at that year. Deeded weeks can also include floating weeks, which would be a range of weeks that you would have to reserve a particular week in your range. That could be anywhere from week 1 to week 52, or depending on the system. Whereas people genuinely believe that point systems are essentially it's almost like frequent flyer miles. You're buying 50,000 or 100,000 points within a program, and you are able to reserve intervals within that program that are at your point value or less. Just like if I wanted to go to Myrtle Beach next week, that would be 80,000 points. If I had 100,000 points, I could make that reservation and go visit it that week. Now, there are some points ownerships that have underlying deeds with them. So to say that deeded weeks and points are mutually exclusive, again, we could just go dive into the minutiae of that for hours. But when you're talking about Hilton and Diamond, it becomes more frustrating because Hilton has deeded weeks and it is also a point system, has their own point system. Diamond there's still two. It's the number one fact is there's still two completely separate systems: Hilton Grand Vacations and Hilton Vacation Club, which is just a renamed Diamond Resorts, are two completely and totally different timeshares. They are not related or linked in any way whatsoever, other than now the names are very similar. And I have a bone to pick with that as well, because they exploit that in sales presentations with people going to Diamond Resorts and being sold, quote unquote, buying a Hilton timeshare, thinking they're buying into the Hilton Grand Vacations Club point system, when in actuality they're buying into the Diamond point system that's just been renamed to Hilton Vacation Club. And HGV Max was the system that was designed to allow Diamond owners access to Hilton resorts, and conversely Hilton owners access to Diamond resorts. But as Irene said, it's not an ownership. It is a program that you purchase that allows access to cross those platforms. And unfortunately, it doesn't change the underlying ownership, meaning when you're buying Hilton Vacation Club or a Diamond Resort point system, you are subject to the rules and regulations of the Diamond Resorts ownership. That is trust points, and again, we could just dive into so many more details on that, but it is completely and totally separate from the Hilton Grand Vacations Club point system, which is it's a higher tier product. It's a one level above. I don't think anyone would argue differently that it's a one tier above product than the Diamond Resort system was. But unfortunately, Diamond salesmen and Hilton Vacation Club salesmen are exploiting that name change to make people think when they visit one of these resorts that they're buying into Hilton Grand Vacation Club point system, using that much more commonly and much more higher valued name, but still selling a Diamond Resorts ownership. And again, it's people likely don't even know all the details if they go by a Hilton Grand Vacation Club point system, much less a Diamond Resorts point system. And so to add that level of complexity on top just makes it almost impossible for someone to truly know what they're buying if they buy directly from the salesman.
Agree. And you know what? They use the Hilton logo all over the place when you're in there. And they even tell you that it's like investing. You're getting all of these points is like equity, and you're getting investment for this. I mean, I was just like, okay, so this is Hilton. Oh yeah. And then you see all the properties we bought. So then, later, trying to use it, there were no properties to apply it to. They had promised me over 200,000 Hilton points, and I didn't see them. Never could use the RCI points towards the Hilton properties. Never could use them. They were always booked. Probably resold. So, I get what you're saying,
Kim,
Irene.
I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to bow out.
Okay,
Oh,
Bob, do
okay.
you
I've got
want
an
to have
appointment I
something
gotta
to
get
say
to.
because you've had a good ending, but do you want to share something before you leave?
Well, the only thing I'd say is that I think that what they're doing is they're using to their advantage. I'm in Colorado. They're in Florida. So there's an advantage there from the standpoint of geographical location of you having to deal with somebody. You can't go to an office and sit down and have a decent conversation. You cannot deal with it from a legal standpoint because you got Colorado and Florida or whatever state in Florida or wherever. So it makes it difficult, and that's an advantage that they use. And I think that they figure that if they put enough pressure on you, you're just going to accept it for what it is and go away. And it's hard to put your foot down and stand your ground, but that's what I found to be work that worked for me. And that's all I got to say is that, and all the points and the things that you guys are talking about, I understand them, but I never had those. We did not want to do that. We just wanted a solid week to be able to take the family and enjoy a week's vacation and so forth. And then the circumstances developed the way they did, and I just wanted to get out of it. So,
And now we have a new TARTA volunteer that's helping TARTA's board president with her timeshare problems.
Would you say that maybe the exit strategies, we need to have some policies changed in Congress to enforce better exit strategies for people who are sold timeshares?
Well, I can answer that there is no state statute, and Brian can weigh in, where they have, like, if you buy a house from Pulte or Lennar, they're not required to take it back. But the difference is you can sell your Pulte or Lennar home.
Anyway.
So, I don't know how we would change that. But before we end the session today, I have one more question, Brian. If I'm back to Hilton Grand Vacations, if I am a Hilton Grand Vacations owner, I consider Diamond people members, and I want access to Diamond properties. Do I buy Diamond US collection points, or do I buy more Hilton points?
I would certainly expect Hilton Grand Vacations owns Diamond Resorts. So once the HGV Max program continues its development, right now it's just a fledgling program. It hasn't even been in place for a year. I would imagine that will continue to undergo vast changes over the next few years as they try to better integrate those two systems. I would always expect the parent resort, meaning Hilton Grand Vacation owners, to have more value in trading or reserving Diamond Resorts than Diamond Resorts owners are going to have trying to trade or use their existing ownership or points to trade into Hilton Resorts. Just that I would never expect it to be a perfectly equitable one-to-one trade either way, because that would just make Hilton people unhappy because they paid far more for their Hilton ownerships and enjoy a higher tier, a higher class system. So you would never expect Hilton to make the same deal for diamond owners to immediately have access. That would just water down the Hilton product, Hilton Grand Vacations product. So yes, buying diamond, even on the problem you have of buying diamond on the resale market is they implement significant restrictions on resale buyers, and it just unfortunately doesn't make it very palatable to buy diamond on the resale market. So yes, buying into the Hilton system, if your goal was to have access to both Hilton and diamond resorts, your money is buying Hilton on the resale market. And eventually, as that HGV Max system, or it might even go away and just eventually they will merge both systems and both resorts. I don't have any knowledge on what their long-term plans are. But I would expect, just like buying Blue Green and just like Marriott buying Vistana, that eventually these systems will slowly merge into one umbrella that owners will have much more seamless access, I guess is a better term to use. I just don't think you'll ever see one diamond point worth one Hilton point, where it's just an exact one-to-one trade or one-to-one value. The same way as a single Marriott point or single Marriott point, relatively speaking, will never be equal to the same amount of a single Vistana point or a Westin point or Sheraton point, where it will always be slanted towards the parent company that bought that system, because they made that plane, they made that purchase to enrich their existing owners, not to make Vistana owners on the same level as Marriott owners, if that makes sense.
So,
And then if I wanted to sell, like if Sheila wants to market her timeshare on Tug, what is the membership fee? And then is there an ad fee? What is the cost to sell on Tug?
We've always offered, if you are trying to give your timeshare away, you can do it for free on Tug. It won't cost you a dime. We have a specific section on the forums called Free Timeshares, where anyone, you don't even need a Tug member, anyone in the general public can join and post the details of their timeshare given away for free, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's become one of the most popular sections on Tug. If you want to list in our marketplace, the Tug membership is only $15 and it covers everything. There's no hidden fees, commissions, collections, nothing. There's $15 for a 1-year membership, and you have access to everything on Tug. But we wanted a place that people who are desperate to give away a timeshare to be able to do so without paying a dime. And you're welcome to come to the Tug forums, register, and post your details there for free. And once you find a buyer, it is up to you to handle closing and stuff like that. But there's nothing paid to Tug whatsoever.
Thank you so much. I think Sheila wants to talk about Exploria for a minute.
Sure.
We've got just a little bit of a minute here. Go ahead, Sheila.
Okay. Bob and I both belong to Exploria Resorts, and he was just at Summer Bay, and I was up at Daytona Beach. And I think one of the things that really needs to be done is people that have medical hardships that can't go anymore. These companies need to recognize that. Exploria does not. I have medical issues, and most of their resorts have stairs to get to and to get up to your place. And it's very hard, and we can't get out of it. They told us that they don't take it back, and they don't consider medical hardships. And that is something that I think should be addressed with whomever, and that maybe TARDA should work on doing something like that.
So what do you think about this, Irene? I mean, what is your thoughts on the fact that there's absolutely no exit strategy for people with physical issues, that they just cannot use this anymore? I mean, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, you've used timeshares for years.
Yes, and since we're talking, I talked earlier about Dorothy that had fallen and broken her jaw in 3 places, and not allowed a hardship release, or the service member, the Army service member that served 24 years overseas and is waiting a lung transplant, and he reported that he was told he could rent it out if he could, to make his maintenance fees, and there were too many obstacles and fees, and he has a security clearance. You would think that the Florida Attorney General, who who prides herself on helping seniors would implement some kind of change to the Timeshare Act. But the baby steps that we're taking is, and the goals of this program is to make people aware of the oral representation clause. I do not rely on oral representations to make my purchase, and instead of being buried in an 80-page contract, that it be disclosed at or prior to the presentation. The second thing is to create awareness so people know about TUG and know about Koala, to rent there, to pay somebody else's maintenance fees so that you can still enjoy these resorts. We talked about the recorded closing. So I think rather than tackle something about forcing a developer to have a hardship release, that would be kind of an uphill battle. But since we're talking about basically senior elder abuse, before we go, Kim, I'd like you to consider adding another book to Pod TV.
Okay, not today, Buster. I love
Yes,
it.
on the cover is Gwendolyn Goodwin, and she's a super sleuth. So thanks to Sheila, this book was written by the founder of Senior versus Crime, which is a special project of the Florida Attorney General's office. And we sent, Sheila sent Dorothy to Senior versus Crime. And then when I found out she was released, they said, we were in tears over Dorothy. We send us a stack of these complaints. So Sheila sent a stack, and I got a call and they said, these are complicated. We're volunteers. And I said, well, I'm a volunteer. Why don't I become a senior sleuth? You're too busy. I'm absolutely not. So I filled in the form, and right away it pops back. Congratulations, you're a senior sleuth. If you want a Florida shirt, polo shirt with the emblem of the Florida Attorney General, you need office training or a super sleuth that goes undercover like Gwendolyn, then you'll have to have training. And within minutes, I heard from the regional director, the state director. So yours truly ended up manager of Senior versus Crime, Duval County, Florida, Jacksonville, until the law firm that Carl mentioned last week, Greenspoon Martyr, demanded I be removed unless I agreed to never take a timeshare call again, even on personal time. Because DBPR, the Timeshare Division for the Florida AG, they do not mediate disputes. Senior versus Crime volunteers can mediate disputes. So when one member called me and they went through BBB, they went through DBPR, nothing, and came, and then I just asked, do you have any medical questions? And they had a litany, and they were allowed a release. So then my manager sent a email to the entire state and said, dump all your timeshare complaints on Irene. I have an expert. And that we were effective, and that just couldn't continue. So I could have continued to work in construction fraud, nail salons, anything else but timeshare. And as I understand it, Senior versus Crime cannot accept a timeshare dispute, thanks to me.
But you helped while you were there.
Yes.
And they thought Bob was combative. No idea.
Oh, no, I've known Irene for quite a few years. So
Give Irene a sword.
Well, this was great. And I met Brian, I think in 2017 or 18, when you were posting diamond rentals. I'm like, Brian, they're suspending these diamond accounts, and there were three of us that got on the phone together, and you were like, oh my gosh, they really are. So
Well,
thanks for everything you do, Brian. We're so happy you were with us today.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. It was a wonderful show. We'll see you guys next week on Timeshares, Solutions or Surrender. Have a great day.
you too.